Hello board game brothers and sisters, I'm Adam Singer and welcome to another episode where I'll be letting you know of all the board games launching on Kickstarter and GameFound over the next week. If you're new to the channel, we do this every week going over all the upcoming campaigns, so if you want to stay up to date, this is the place to be. But before we get started, I do like to go over some new announcements and discoveries that I just found out about. And there is a game I do want to mention because Leader Games just announced that they will be launching an expansion for their game Ahoy, which I believe is a game that went straight to retail originally, but now they're going to be doing a campaign, I'm sure adding a bunch of new content as well as this brand new expansion. And if you're not familiar with Leader Games, they're most well known for creating wildly asymmetrical roles within their board games for the games like Root, Vast, and Oath, as well as a ton of other games as well. And this game does follow that same paradigm where every character is going to be having an asymmetrical role, except this one is a lot lighter and has a lot simpler setup than all those other games. So if you are interested in games like Root, but you don't want to have all that setup and rules explanation, this is definitely one that I think you want to check out. I've heard a lot of good things about this one and I'm really interested in checking it out even for myself. And this one is a area control game where players are going to be controlling their different characters, rolling dice at the start of the round, and then assigning those dice to different actions on their own specific action board. There's going to be a few different options where you can spend your dice, and the value can even come into play as well. But like I said, each character is going to be very asymmetric, so depending on the character that you're playing, you're going to have a slightly different strategy. I don't have an exact launch date for this one yet, but it should be launching at some point in the fall, and I will be going into a lot more detail on it in the week of its launch. So if you want to know more about this one or just get an update when it does actually launch, you can always subscribe down below to get information on this game and many others that will be launching in the future. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this one, but I did reach out to Jeremy Tracy over at Tracy Boards, which is where my Crokinole board was built that I've said so many good things about already. And a few of you did mention that you're interested in getting one for yourself, so he hooked me up with an affiliate link. And these are some of the best Crokinole boards that money can buy. These are the official Crokinole board for the World Tournament that is hosted here in Tavistock, where I actually happen to live. And I've played a ton of Crokinole boards, and I haven't played any other board that was quite as smooth as this one. And if you do end up grabbing one through the affiliate link that I'll have in the description below, that will earn me a little bit of a commission. So if you want to get yourself a nice little gift while also helping out the channel, you can find that down below. And of course, we can't start this video without a quick shout out to Alex over at Board Game Co, because him and I do work together keeping track of all these different campaigns. We sync up periodically and just make sure that we are sharing all our information, that we have the most up-to-date info as possible. I do these videos every week, but he puts one up at the start of the month, letting you know of the games that we know about at that time and giving you a little bit more of a look into the future. If you're interested in seeing videos like that, as well as a ton of other videos that he does offer on his channel, I will have his channel linked in the description below as well. Check him out. He does a ton of great work, and if you do decide to subscribe to him, I think you'll agree that he does earn it with the quality content that he does put out. That's it for an intro, and there are games to cover, so let's check them out. And the first campaign we have is going to be a little bit of a different one, but this one is launching on August 21st. And this one is kind of an expansion to the world of Cosmos Empires. This is a campaign that launched a couple of years ago, and I will give you more detail on how this one plays in a second here. But this actual campaign is not going to be really offering you a new game. Instead, it's going to be offering you a 1,000-piece puzzle featuring the artwork from that game. Like I said, the game will also be featured in the campaign, so if you are looking for a game, you can still go ahead and check it out. There's going to be a few different puzzle pieces featuring all sorts of different types of art, and as you can see, it does look really, really cool. And if you are a fan of puzzles, that might be enough for you to go ahead and check this one out. But if you do want to know more about the actual game and how the game plays, I did cover this one in detail during the week of its launch back when it launched, so I'll just go ahead and roll that previous footage for you now. And this is a competitive game where players are going to be trying to build up a tableau of cards where each of the cards have a die value on it as well as an associated income amount. And the way this game works is that on your turn you're going to be rolling 2 dice, and then you're going to be adding those dice together and then getting your total value. And then any of the cards in your tableau that equal that value are going to generate their income. But the catch here is that all your opponent's cards will also do the same thing, but luckily you have 2 actions at your disposal, and you can use those actions to purchase new cards and add them to your tableau, or instead you can use those actions to lower the die value by 1. So if you roll a value that benefits a lot of your opponents, you have some control there in order to modify that result. And there are a ton of different cards here, and some of them even have some special abilities and work a little bit differently, and when you do actually gain that card, you'll be able to activate that ability for free. And the game continues like this until a player has a total income generation of 30 across all their cards, and then that player will win the game. And launching on the 22nd, we have Peacemakers, Horrors of War, and this plays 1 to 4 players and takes about 60 to 120 minutes to play. And this one is a cooperative scenario-based game where players are going to be trying to actually prevent a war. This one is a reimplementation of a previous game called Dawn of the Peacemakers. I wouldn't consider this one a sequel because they're actually planning not to create the original game anymore. This one's going to be a better version of that game, and they've completely replaced the original game with this one. And because this one is replacing that original game, you can imagine that these games do play very similar to each other, and they do, except this one's making some small tweaks to improve the streamlining of the game, clarifying some rules, and adding some additional changes in order to make the game feel a little bit more thematic to what Experience is trying to deliver. The original one was also a 12 scenario campaign, whereas this one's going to be offering you a bunch of different scenarios that can be played in any order. And since they're all independent of each other, you can actually play each scenario multiple times or even with a different player group. But a really cool feature of this game is that when you do choose a scenario, each player is going to be playing as a asymmetrical character, and there's 4 different characters to play as, but you're going to be using an actual flip book in order to set up the scenario that you want to play. There's going to be a whole bunch of different maps on each of these pages. You're just going to be flipping to whichever scenario you want, and each scenario is going to be introducing its own challenges and mechanisms and different things for players to discover, as well as everything else that you need in order to actually set it up. This is a game that plays over a series of rounds as 2 armies are going to be engaging in battle. Players are not aligned with either of these armies, but instead they're trying to be the ones to create peace between them. Each round starts with the player's phase, and each player is going to have their own deck of cards that's associated with their character, and that's what they're going to be using in order to perform their actions. At the start of the round, you're going to be drawing a hand of cards, then you'll be able to play as many of those cards as you like. Each of the cards are multi-use, and the player is going to be able to choose between either the special ability that's specific to that card, or instead to do one of the basic actions indicated by the icons on that card. These basic actions can allow you to do all sorts of different things, like manipulate the actions that the armies will perform by looking at the top cards in their deck, and then putting them back in any order that you want. This is a great way for the players to see what's going to be happening next, but then also use it to their advantage to balance the battlefield to make sure that one army isn't getting the upper hand over the other. Of course, you're going to be trying to do all of this, all while trying to limit the number of casualties. Another basic action could be to move your character to a different location on the board, giving you access to the different hexes in that area. And this especially comes in handy with the final basic action, which is to build fortifications in one of the hexes that you have access to. Because if you know that one of the armies is going to be putting an assault onto the other army's hexes, you can actually build a fortification there to limit the amount of damage that they inflict, preventing casualties while also preventing one army from getting the better of the other. But once each of the players have played all the cards that they want to play, performing their basic actions or their specific card abilities, then we're going to be moving into the army phase. And the way that this works is that you're actually going to be drawing a card from each of the army's decks, combining them together in order to determine what the AI is going to do. Most of the time this means units from either of the opposing sides making progress towards each other and then attacking any of the units that are within the range. Each of these armies is going to be driving down the motivation of the other army and possibly even killing and destroying some of their units. And this is where the whole goal of the game comes into play, because if one of the army ever gets the opposing army's motivation all the way down to 0, then the players have lost in finding peace. But if the players are able to manipulate the armies in such a way so that they both end up with either 1 or 2 motivation, then both of the armies will instead put down their arms and find a peaceful conclusion. But of course, the road to peace isn't always a peaceful one, and there could be casualties along the way, and this is a new addition that this version of the game introduces, and that's that every time there is a casualty in this game, you're going to be adding horror cards into your deck. And when you do draw these cards, they could limit the actions that you have available to you or even cause other negative effects. The game continues like this until one of those endgame conditions are met, and if the players are able to find peace, then they win the game. And if you are interested in this one, you can check it out, and I have it linked in the description below. Also launching on the 22nd, we have Dungeon Kart, and this plays 2 to 6 players and takes about 30 to 60 minutes to play, and this one is a racing game set in the world of Boss Monster. If you're not familiar with Boss Monster, it's a whole separate series of games where players play as a monster who's going to be building up their dungeon in order to lure in unsuspecting heroes. But in order to set up this game, you're going to be using a whole bunch of different track tiles in order to set up the track that players are going to be racing on, but you can also customize this and create your own tracks to add more variability into the game. Each player is going to be setting up their own boss monster and racing card at the starting line, and then players are going to be racing around the track, collecting coins, and then spending those coins to perform special abilities. Players will also have opportunities to perform different spells in order to gain certain power-ups, or of course to mess with the other players. But these spells aren't just a fun way to have a bit of extra power, they also work as a balancing mechanism because depending on what place you are is going to affect the power of that spell. But if you really want to win this game, you got to be a good driver, and each player is going to be using their own personal player board in order to do a few different things. It's going to be monitoring your overall speed, but it's also going to be allowing you to perform different actions like moving, bumping the other players, getting a boost, or even turning around corners. Monitoring your speed is pretty important in this game because obviously the faster you're going, the more quickly you're going to be moving around the track. But having a faster speed also comes with its risks because it's more likely that you won't be able to avoid certain obstacles, and this could cause you to spin out, costing you more time than you were hoping to save. And the game continues like this with players taking turns performing one of those actions off their board per turn, but then also performing any spells and spending any coins in order to perform additional abilities. If this one sounds interesting to you, I do have a link in the description below, and of course you can click to get notified. Also launching on the 22nd, we have Small Time Heroes, and this plays 1 to 3 players and takes just 30 to 90 minutes to play. And this one is a cooperative deck builder that features a whole bunch of different character decks and a whole bunch of different boss decks. You'll be able to mix and match these however you want, creating a ton of variability from game to game. The boss deck is not only going to have a boss, but it's going to have a whole bunch of monsters that players are going to have to go up against throughout the game. And if the players are able to defeat all the monsters in that deck, then they win the game. The game is going to be alternating between the player's turn and the enemy's turn, and during the player's turn you're going to be drawing 5 cards into your hand, and you can play as many of these cards as you like, but they're each going to come with an energy cost, and players only start with a starting energy of 3 at the beginning of each round. Of course, there are some cards that could grant you more energy as well, allowing you to play more of those cards that you might have in your hand. But essentially you're going to be trying to use those cards to attack the enemy and defend yourself as you try and make your way through the horde. Each of the enemies can have their own set of stats for strength and defense, as well as their own specific abilities, and players will be revealing an intent card on the enemy's phase in order to determine what the enemies are going to do. You'll then resolve that card, which can do all sorts of different things like power up the enemies, introduce more enemies into the battlefield, or even attack the players. And of course, it is very valuable information for the players to know what intent card is going to be drawn next, so there are some actions and ways for players to know this in advance. The game continues like this, alternating between the player's phase and the enemy's phase as the players make their way throughout the horde, and when players do defeat enemies, they will be rewarded for that. And this is the part of the game that I really like because this one is a deck builder, and every time that you kill an enemy, you'll be able to choose from 3 cards to add to your deck. The cool thing about this is that none of those cards have any cost. You'll just choose the one that you think will work the best for you, and then the rest get discarded. I really like this mechanism for a couple reasons. The first one being that you're never going to be limited in your options since coins are not an issue. You can just choose whichever card that you like most. And the second reason that I really like this is that it means that there's no currency cards that you're going to be mixing into your deck, which a lot of deck builders have where you're adding cards into your deck for the sole purpose of just generating currency and they don't really do anything else in the game. But in addition to adding a new card to your deck, there's also a few other things you can earn when you defeat an enemy, such as some one-time use items or special abilities. The game continues like this, alternating between the player's turn and the enemy's turn, and if the players are able to defeat all the enemies in the horde, then they win the game, and if you are interested in this one, you can check it out. I have links to the campaign in the description below. Also launching on the 22nd, we have Guilty Gear, and this is a fighting game for 2 players that's based on the video game with the same name. And the way this game works is that each player is going to be choosing their character from a roster of 20 different characters. Each character is going to be coming with its own fighting deck that players are going to be using to perform actions on their turn. The game board's very reminiscent of those 2D side-scrolling fighting games that you might have grown up with because the entire board is just a row of 9 spaces. Each player is going to be starting in the 3rd space from their side of the board, and then players are going to be using their cards to perform different attacks and abilities, but you can also choose to discard any of these cards to instead perform a movement action. Whenever you do that, you can choose to move towards or away from your enemy, assuming that there is an available space there. Some of the cards do also allow for movement as well, but they can perform all sorts of varying effects, including different boosts and effects that will persist throughout the game for a time, as well as pushing, pulling, or manipulating your opponent's position on the board. Each player is going to be tracking their own character's stats on a track on their side of the board, and the first player to get their opponent's health down to 0 is going to be the one to win the game. And of course, as always, I do have links to this campaign in the description below if you want to check it out, or click to get notified once it launches. And launching on August 25th, we have Minikin Berry Brawl. This plays 2 to 3 players. It takes about 25 to 40 minutes to play. And this one is a competitive game where players are going to be controlling their own team of creatures as they deploy them out on the board in order to control different areas to earn berries, and then spend those berries to either add more units to the board or upgrade the units that you have as you try to go up against your opponents, defeat them in battle, and complete different quests in order to earn victory points. The main board is going to be made up of a whole bunch of different tiles with different values on them, with a special tile located in the center. Whichever tile that you're standing on at the end of the round is going to earn you the amount of berries labeled on that tile. Each player does start the game with one character already deployed out on the board, but at the start of each round, each player is going to have the option to spend either 10 berries to deploy a new unit, or 5 berries to gain an upgrade card. During your turn, you'll also be able to move all of your creatures that you already have out on the board, and in order to do that, you're going to be rolling a die to determine whether you have 1 movement point or 2 movement points. As I said, the tile that you stand on is going to be earning you that many berries at the end of the round, so players are going to be trying to position themselves on the spaces that provide the most berries. But if 2 players ever end up on the same space, that's going to automatically trigger a battle, and this is resolved quite simply by just rolling a die for each side, and whoever rolls the higher value is going to be winning that battle. The winner gains a victory point, but then is sent back to their starting location, with the loser gaining a single berry as compensation. The center location does offer the most berries, but the only way that you can get to that location is by rolling either a 1 or an 8 on the 8-sided die, when you are already standing adjacent to that location. If you're able to do this, you only temporarily move on to that location, instantly gaining 5 berries and also a quest card, which can earn you more victory points by achieving a certain objective before the end of the game, but then you will get sent back to the location where you came from. And that's pretty much everything there is to play the game, and this one is designed to be a family-friendly game, which is why the rule set is quite easy to teach and learn. And if this one does sound interesting to you and like it might bring some fun to your family, you can check it out, and I have links to this campaign in the description below. And that's everything I have for you this week, but don't leave yet because we still have a few awesome giveaways to announce. And the first one's going to be for a pledge for the game Snow Planner. And this is a medium to heavyweight dice worker placement game where each player is going to be managing their own hotel at the side of a mountain. Players are going to be managing guests, bringing them into their hotel, and then trying to fulfill their requirements in order to allow them to stay multiple nights. Each guest is going to create different ways for the players to earn victory points, and of course keeping them multiple nights means more opportunities for that, but they might leave early if they don't enjoy their stay. Players will be able to upgrade their hotel and perform various actions on their own personal player boards, but there is also a main player board that represents the mountain that's going to be shared by all players, and you'll be able to put your dice out there to perform various actions as well. This giveaway is going to be for a pledge that gets you the core game and all unlocked stretch goals, and to enter this giveaway, all you have to do is leave a comment down below, and you can leave any comment that you like, but if you're looking for something in particular, maybe you could let us know what your favorite winter activity is. And spoiler alert, there is only one right answer. The next giveaway we have is for a pledge for a small filler game known as Crumbs, and I think this one looks like a ton of fun, both solo and with another player, but essentially players are trying to manage their different ingredients in order to fulfill orders to create different sandwiches. You only have a few actions at your disposal, and if you run out of actions, you lose the game, but every time you complete an order, all your actions reset. This means that you're going to be timing your actions with completing these orders to get the most out of them, but you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself and run out of ingredients because that could cost you the game. And this giveaway is going to be for the Sandwich Club pledge, which gets you a copy of the game as well as the expansion. And to enter this giveaway, I'm going to do something a little bit different and run it over on the Discord. So if you want to enter this giveaway, just check out a link to our Discord in the description below. Head over to the giveaways channel and then click the little emoji underneath that giveaway. That'll get you entered into the giveaway, and it'll automatically get drawn at the end of next week. Good luck in the giveaways, but now let's go ahead and draw the winner for last week's giveaways. And we do have a few names to draw here. I still have a few games to give away from my stack of games. The reason that there's 3 games still available is because I still haven't heard back from one of the previous winners. So these are going to be the last 2 names I draw for this, and then you'll get dibs on whichever games are left, depending on who contacts me first. So let's start with these ones, and I'll draw one winner from the YouTube comments and one winner from the Patreon subscribers. We do also have a pledge to give away for the game Ascendancy, which you can check out on Kickstarter now. It's doing amazing. It looks like a really, really fun game. I'm really excited to play it myself, but I will draw the name for this one last. And to draw a winner, I use this fancy application here. All these extra names down here are bonus entries for my Patreon subscribers. If you like this sort of content, you want to help support the channel and help make all these efforts just a little bit more sustainable for me, you can subscribe to the Patreon, which I have linked down below. But if you're not interested in that, there are other ways to support the channel as well, which are completely free, just by liking and subscribing and watching these videos, and also sharing them with other communities or people that you think might like them. I do enjoy making these videos most of the time, but it is a lot of work with the research and editing and how much I stutter and need to re-record and crop together all sorts of different takes. So any support or even just a comment down below with a few nice words does go a long way, and I truly do appreciate it. But let's go ahead and draw the first winner for first dibs on the remaining stack of games. So let's go ahead and draw the comments and draw a winner. And the first winner is Jacques Rousseau, and this is one of our Patreon subscribers, so congratulations, Jacques. And I will go ahead and draw another winner strictly from the YouTube comments, who will also get to pick from one of these remaining games. So let's draw another winner. And the next winner is Ricardo Moriera Saladas de Andrade. What is that from? I swear I've heard this name before, but I don't know where, so I might just be crazy. I don't know. Either way, congratulations on the win. Just email me at adam@shelfclutter.com, and whoever emails me first is going to be able to get their choice of either Mindbug Beyond, That Old Wallpaper, or Zombicide comic and comic book extras. But now for the fun part, let's go ahead and draw the winner for the all-in pledge for Ascendancy. Super lucky whoever gets this one. This looks like a really fun game, and an all-in pledge is a really nice surprise. So let's go ahead and draw that winner. And the winner is SF Frank, and this is one of our Patreon subscribers, so congratulations, and I'm super excited for you. And just for fun, I did go through a little bit of my data in my spreadsheets, and SF Frank has been a Patreon since November of 2021, and he hasn't won a giveaway yet. So I'm really happy that we're able to correct that today, and winning an all-in pledge of Ascendancy is quite a way to make an entrance. That's everything I have for you this week. We are in a bit of the slower time of the summer season, so not too many games this or last week, but I do expect it to pick up very, very soon. I did look ahead, and there are some exciting games launching next week as well that I'm looking forward to checking out. And as always, thanks so much for watching each and every week. I do appreciate it, but I do just want to ask one thing, and that's just to keep that shelf cluttered and the table full.